Welcome back to Nature Labs and our coverage of the Federal Liberal Leadership Convention. While we're awaiting the results, likely to come in shortly after 6:30 Eastern Time, let's discuss a few of the topics that have been coming up in conversation, like the legacy of outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as both leader of the country and leader of the Federal Liberal Party. As a party leader, Justin Trudeau's legacy is probably going to be pretty positive. After all, the Liberals, who have often been in power since Confederation, had fallen on hard times when he assumed the Liberal leadership. They were third place in the House of Commons. He took them all the way back to government, winning a majority in 2015 and two subsequent minority governments. Now, when Justin Trudeau won that leadership race, he was probably hoping for multiple majority governments. But still, being in power for nearly 10 years and being one of the longest serving prime ministers in our nation's history means that Liberals will probably reflect fondly upon his leadership. After all political parties want to win and form government so they can advance the ideas they believe in. Now, his legacy as prime minister, it's a bit more complicated, and it likely is determined by where you stand on the political spectrum. When he was elected in 2015, he ran on promises of sunny ways, of doing politics differently, and of course advancing a bunch of policy ideas that he actually dropped shortly after being elected. That being said, he did advance issues around reconciliation, strengthening Canada's social safety net, and tackling environmental issues. Some on the left will say he didn't go far enough in advancing those issues, especially when he had the maximum power during that majority government. Others will say, often in Western Canada, especially in Alberta, that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went too far in those issues, often having them clash with economic issues, overstepping bounds of federal governments, infringing on provincial rights and decision-making power, and of course, impacting the economic bottom line of the country. That's included from the Conservative spectrum, believe that Justin Trudeau ballooned the deficit, that the economy as a whole took a nosedive during his time in power, especially when you look at metrics like productivity. Now, that's definitely true. That happened under his watch. Now, was that a victim of circumstance because of COVID? And of course, more recently, the impact of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs? Maybe. Or maybe it's because his decisions weren't as economically sound as they should have been. Again, these are probably, the answer to these questions will be determined where you stand on the political spectrum. In terms of what dispassionate historians might view his legacy as, of course, it's hard to judge in the here and now. Legacies always require having a little bit more time and dispassion to reflect back and assess the merits of a prime minister's time in office and whether they actually impacted the country for the good or for the worse. So time will tell on Justin Trudeau's legacy. But his political legacy right here, right now, unquestionably is one of unpopularity, and he's certainly leaving a country that's more divided than he found it in 2015. Again, whether that's his fault or not is an open debate. But without question, his leaving office is allowing the Liberal Party to have a new chance to actually form government in the next election. Though Justin Trudeau has become widely unpopular, Liberals and Conservatives across the country, by stepping aside, a new Liberal leader, polls tell us, will have a competitive chance to actually form the next government, even if Conservatives still, for the most part, are leading in most polls. That next election, of course, will be about major issues, but most pressingly about the impact of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on Canada's economy and what decisions Canada should make as a nation to protect our sovereignty and to move forward on the questions of the day. The Liberal leader, of course, will probably be putting forward ideas specifically around continuing to tackle environmental issues, whether that's climate change or biodiversity. The Conservatives, certainly under the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, believe that they've got a strong set of ideas to tackle environmental issues, but don't believe that the Liberal set of ideas, ones that focus on government intervention, are going to be the right one. That'll be one of the frames that come up in the next federal election. On top of which, it's how to handle the tariff threat. Conservatives believe that the best way to help strengthen our economy is to allow for more growth, including building pipelines immediately, breaking down interprovincial trade barriers, and tax cuts. Liberal candidates in this Liberal leadership race, at least, have shown that they want to strengthen that social safety net, having Canadians backed financially, often again through federal government interference or aid, however you want to look at that issue, as a way to help Canadians through what will be undoubtedly a challenging time, no matter what President Trump decides to do. So that's another frame that will come up in this next election, whether there should be stronger federal government intervention in terms of strengthening that social safety net, or whether we should be tackling tackling this issue through ideas like tax cuts, as the opposition leader Pierre Poilievre has proposed. Now, of course, the final issue, and probably the biggest issue, is the two heavyweight candidates in tonight's Liberal leadership election race are proud globalists. And of course, you know all about that from our discussions around ideology and class. But this new idea, this debate between populism and globalism, is going to be the forefront of this next federal election campaign. And in many ways, whoever wins tonight will probably be proud globalists and will wear that branding with pride. Whereas Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party are embracing populism. And although they have said that they don't believe in Donald Trump's brand of populism, certainly they have a different set of ideas and a different approach to politics, one that doesn't believe in globalism, doesn't believe necessarily in the importance of Canada punching above its weight on the world stage around environmental issues or social issues, but rather strengthening our economy here at home. So tonight's outcome of the leadership race will have a huge impact in terms of what that election frame looks like, whenever it might be, whether that's in a couple of days or in a couple of weeks. But without question, Justin Trudeau's legacy will hang over the next election, and of course, where you stand on that legacy will go a long way probably to deciding who you'll be rooting for in that next race. But without question, whoever wins tonight's race will have a big say on the ideas that are being debated in the race, and certainly they're hoping they'll give the Federal Liberal Party a new chance at power to create a new legacy that we can debate several years down the road.